It's Nolan. Now, before we get started, make sure y'all hitting that like button. Make sure y'all sharing it on your respective platforms. Let somebody know what we're doing today. Now, let's get into the show.
I've been raking up off these niggas for a minute now. Hey, y'all gonna learn to listen one way or another though. Hey, let's get it. Let me show you how I keep the money coming. Strapped up, Nike check, nigga run it. In the mirror, yeah, I love what I'm becoming. Ain't no discussion, boy, don't make me spit your onion. Hey, let me show you how I keep the money coming. Strapped up, Nike check, nigga run it. In the mirror, yeah, I love what I'm becoming. Ain't no discussion, boy, don't make me split your onion. Flashback to the days, I was in the days. I was sleeping on the couch, couldn't nobody stay. I was serving up the chicken, couldn't get a raise. Now I'm cooking up the game like I'm Bobby Flay. Fuck rap, I ain't got no friends in this shit. Put them M's to the front like a Benz in this shit. I be swimming through the money, got some fans in this shit. I be stomping through the street like some Timbs in this bitch. Made trends in this shit, but some IOUs, but I don't lose. Construction high, tighten them screws. Tie my shoes, back on the block, straight to the bag, ho. Jumping off the porch for that green like a tadpole.
What's going on, beautiful people? It's the kid J Nolan here. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Industry, your number one source for music, entertainment, commentary, and breakdowns. Hope everybody's doing well out there this evening. In this video, we're going to be getting into Drake and Adin Ross finally officially responding on paper in the docket to one of their stake lawsuits. All right. Now, this particular one is in New Mexico. And of course, with the allegations, they're basically saying that Drake and Adin Ross have been used by stake to promote illegal gambling in the U.S. in states that do not permit actual gambling, right? They say that the stake cash or the gold coins, the gold coins that are used on stake.us is just a front for the more valuable currency stake cash, which is supposedly 1-to-1 with the US dollar. And they say that they're promoting gambling to people. People are losing houses, homes, got their clothes off their back, vehicles, everything. And they're doing a class action suit. There's multiple class action suits in the US going up against stake. They accuse them of using house money for Drake and Adin Ross to gamble on stream, making it look like they're actually taking losses when they're not, which further amplifies the promotion of the gambling to the viewers, encouraging them to sign up. And the promotions on the website don't let people know that they're actually playing with their money or that it could lead to a more harmful addiction practice, etc. Okay. There is a civil RICO against stake Drake and Adin Ross as well, but I don't believe that this is the actual filing that they're responding to today. Okay, this is the New Mexico filing, and their deadline to reply was yesterday. So now the paperwork is in. Let's go ahead and pull it up. So here we have Drake's motion to dismiss. Defendant Drake Graham respectfully requests that the court dismiss plaintiff's claims against him for lack of personal jurisdiction pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12b-2. Plaintiffs make no effort to carry their burden of showing that Mr. Graham took some act to purposefully avail himself of Missouri law or the Missouri market, because plaintiffs have not shown and cannot show that Mr. Graham purposefully and expressly aimed his conduct toward Missouri. Okay, so this is Missouri, not New Mexico. So what the hell was the New Mexico shit that I was reading? Anyway, I think there's another one out there. This court should therefore dismiss plaintiff's claims against Mr. Graham for lack of personal jurisdiction under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12b-2. In the alternative, Mr. Graham joins defendant's motion to compel arbitration and requests that the court submit the claims against him to arbitration and stay this proceeding. So they want to try to they're trying to get it dismissed, but they also want to move this into arbitration rather than having to take this to a full-on court case. Preliminary statement. Plaintiffs allege a wide-ranging scheme to promote online gambling on defendant sweepstakes limited platform stake.us through a global network of influencers, celebrities, and performance artists, including defendant Aubrey Drake Graham. Plaintiffs' claims will fail. But because they are grounded entirely in Mr. Graham's nationally accessible live streaming and social media content, the court lacks jurisdiction over Mr. Graham and must dismiss plaintiffs' claims against him. So what y'all want, a federal case? I don't know. Because this is, a local level. Plaintiffs make no effort to carry their burden of showing that Mr. Graham is subject to personal jurisdiction in New Mexico. Okay, so there's the New Mexico shit. To do so, they would have to allege that Mr. Graham took some act to purposefully avail himself of New Mexico law or the New Mexico market. They have not done so. Instead, all plaintiffs have alleged is that Mr. Graham promoted stake through global internet platforms like Kick, Instagram, and X. They do not allege that Mr. Graham's stake-related content so much as mentioned New Mexico, let alone targeted it. I don't believe that that's what they were alleging to begin with, but of course they got to try to defend their client. This makes sense. Mr. Graham has never directed his stake-related content toward New Mexico consumers or in the New Mexico market as opposed to a broad global audience. That leaves plaintiffs with their allegations that Mr. Graham's content has affected or could affect New Mexico residents. These allegations fall short too. 10th Circuit law is clear. Plaintiffs cannot rely solely on the alleged in-state effects of Mr. Graham's conduct to establish jurisdiction. They must also show that Mr. Graham expressly aimed his conduct toward New Mexico. Because plaintiffs have not made and could not make that showing, the court cannot exercise personal jurisdiction over Mr. Graham. So they're saying that the promos and all of the things that Drake and, of course, Adin have been doing was not directly aimed for residents of New Mexico. Okay? So they're saying, although New Mexico residents may have been affected, it was never our intent. We never did anything targeting New Mexico. Therefore, New Mexico does not have jurisdiction over this particular case. Accordingly, the court should dismiss plaintiffs' claims against Mr. Graham for lack of personal jurisdiction under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12b-2. Background: Mr. Graham is a recording artist, songwriter, and entertainer with questionable songwriting. Part of his work involves collaboration with brands, creators, and other entertainers on a variety of social media platforms. Plaintiffs allege that Defendant Sweepstakes Limited uses Mr. Graham's celebrity influence to promote Sweepstakes Limited's free-to-play social gaming platform stake.us. Outside of the United States, Mr. Graham also promotes stake.com, a separate platform that is not available to users in New Mexico or anywhere else in the United States. Mr. Graham features the Stake brand on his globally accessible social media accounts and gameplay live streams on streaming platforms like Kick.com. And there's also, I think in the civil RICO case, they claim that Drake is taking money from Stake to bot his music and stuff like that. But that's not this particular one, if I'm not mistaken. Plaintiffs assert that Mr. Graham's promotional activity is misleading and encourages impressionable users to gamble. I think that's a pretty solid statement, but of course it may not hold up in litigation. For example, they allege that as part of its marketing scheme, Stake fronts Mr. Graham house money, so any reported losses are part of a marketing tactic designed to draw attention. They also allege that in his promotional role, Mr. Graham deceptively and fraudulently misrepresents that Stake.us is a social casino, although they do not identify any particular statement on the part of Mr. Graham. Plaintiffs allege that by doing so, Mr. Graham influences consumers in New Mexico and elsewhere to gamble with Stake.us. Well, if the ads are running in New Mexico or New Mexico residents are watching Drake on Kick, gambling and seeing the promotion of it, I can understand that, but we'll see how the law views it. Plaintiffs make much of Mr. Graham's status as a global celebrity. For example, they point to Mr. Graham's widely followed Instagram and X accounts, alleging that displaying the Stake brand on some of the most followed accounts in the world elevates Stake far beyond the typical World Wide Web platform. That's a fact. They have nothing to say, however, about Mr. Graham's efforts to promote the steak brand in New Mexico in particular. Plaintiffs do not allege that Mr. Graham's steak-related content has ever featured or even mentioned the state, nor do they allege that Mr. Graham has ever tailored his steak-related content to the New Mexico market or New Mexico consumers. Instead, they allege only that Mr. Graham's conduct influences consumers in New Mexico and elsewhere to gamble and threatens the welfare of New Mexico residents. Elsewhere, they allege that Mr. Graham's content is directed not just toward New Mexico, but other states as well. I wonder if you will actually address the house money allegation. You alluded to it, but you didn't give any further context about the nature of that. This is consistent with both the global reach of social media in general and Mr. Graham's content in particular. Mr. Graham has never directed his steak-related content at New Mexico consumers or the New Mexico market, nor has he otherwise tailored this content to New Mexico consumers or the New Mexico market. Instead, as with his other endeavors, Mr. Graham's steak.us related content reaches a broad national, if not global, audience. Is New Mexico not included in broad national and global audience? Argument: a court must dismiss a complaint under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12b-6 when it lacks personal jurisdiction over the defendant. The court can exercise personal jurisdiction over Mr. Graham only if doing so is consistent with New Mexico's long-arm statute NMSA 38116 and the requirements of due process. Because the long-arm statute is coextensive with constitutional limitations that the due process clause imposes, the court may exercise jurisdiction if doing so is consistent with due process. The plaintiff bears the burden of establishing personal jurisdiction. To survive a motion to dismiss for lack of personal jurisdiction under Rule 12b-2, a plaintiff must make a prima facie showing of personal jurisdiction by presenting by affidavit or other written materials facts that, if true, would support jurisdiction over the defendant. A. The court lacks general jurisdiction over Mr. Graham. Plaintiffs do not appear to allege that Mr. Graham is subject to general jurisdiction in New Mexico, and for good reason. The test for general personal jurisdiction turns on whether the defendant is at home within the forum state, which Drake does not reside. For individuals, the paradigm forum of the exercise of general jurisdiction is the individual's domicile. To the extent a court outside of Texas could, in an exceptional case, assert general jurisdiction over Mr. Graham, plaintiffs fail to allege any new contacts with New Mexico that would satisfy the stringent demands of due process. B. The court lacks specific jurisdiction over Mr. Graham. That leaves specific jurisdiction. For a court to exercise specific jurisdiction consistent with due process, the defendant's suit-related conduct must create a substantial connection with the forum state. Courts conduct a two-step inquiry in determining whether this substantial connection exists, examining A, whether the plaintiff has shown that the defendant has minimum contacts with the forum state, and if so, B, whether the defendant has presented a compelling case that the presence of some other considerations would render jurisdiction unreasonable. Central to the minimum contacts test is the requirement that the defendant must have purposefully directed its activities at residents of the forum state, which they've already been leaning on in this whole document. You know what I'm saying? So one, he doesn't live in New Mexico, which would, refer to the domicile piece. And number two, they state that Drake is not directing anything specifically towards New Mexico to be affecting those people specifically, right? Mere foreseeability of causing injury in the forum state is not enough. Instead, the defendant must have deliberately engaged in significant activities in this state. Courts use three frameworks for determining whether a defendant's conduct satisfies the purposeful direction requirement. 1. Continuing relationship with forum state residents. 2. Deliberate exploitation of the forum state market. And 3. Harmful effects in the forum state. Okay, well, number 3, it sounds like they've already outlined. But again, they're going to have to prove that. Where a defendant's contacts with a forum arise out of non-territorial activities like internet posting, courts place emphasis on the defendant intentionally directing his activity or operation at the forum state rather than just having the activity or operation accessible there. Because plaintiffs cannot show that Mr. Graham intentionally directed his stake.us related content toward New Mexico consumers or the New Mexico market, the court cannot exercise personal jurisdiction over him. Plaintiffs allege that Mr. Graham has the following contacts with New Mexico. They say Stake in particular pays online influencer defendants Adin Ross and Arbitrate Graham each millions of dollars yearly to engage in live stream online casino gambling with Stake.com, which, as the name implies, does indeed influence consumers in New Mexico and elsewhere to gamble with Stake.us. When Ross and Drake purport to gamble online with Stake.com, they often do not do so with their own money, despite telling the public in New Mexico and elsewhere the opposite. This fact is not shared with the public in New Mexico by Stake and/or Ross and/or Drake. Stake's influencer marketing, especially through Drake and Ross, is directed, among others, at teenagers in New Mexico and in other states, which of course is also illegal for teenagers to gamble, not only in the nation, but specifically in New Mexico, where they're not supposed to be gambling at all, regardless of age, if I'm not mistaken. Stake's and Drake's and Ross's conduct here threatens the welfare of New Mexico residents and especially its young people. In short, plaintiffs allege that Mr. Graham's Stake.us related content is accessible and may have effects in New Mexico and other states. Given plaintiffs' allegations, neither the continuing relationship nor the deliberate exploitation framework confer jurisdiction here. Plaintiffs do not, for example, allege that Mr. Graham has ongoing suit-related relationships of any kind with New Mexico residents. Nor do plaintiffs meaningfully allege that Mr. Graham has had the kind of high sales volume and large customer base and revenue himself that would establish jurisdiction under the deliberate exploitation framework. The only potentially relevant framework then is the harmful effects framework. The harmful effects framework is grounded in the 10th Circuit's narrow reading of the standard set out in the Supreme Court's decision in Carter v. Jones. To establish jurisdiction under this framework, a plaintiff must demonstrate A, an intentional action that was B, expressly aimed at the forum state, with C, knowledge that the brunt of the injury would be felt in the forum state. It is not enough for a website to be accessible in the forum state. The forum state must be the focal point of the defendant's conduct. Okay? Accordingly, plaintiff's failure to allege an inability to show that Mr. Graham expressly aimed his Stake.us related content at New Mexico is fatal to jurisdiction under this framework too. So according to the statutes that they're bringing up and laws that they're bringing up, the plaintiffs are going to have to prove again that there is some level of direct influence that they're trying to put in New Mexico with these ads or whatever they're doing. The only allegation that even suggests that Mr. Graham expressly aimed his conduct at New Mexico makes this plain. Plaintiffs cannot allege that Mr. Graham himself aimed his stake-related content at New Mexico specifically. Instead, they allege that Stake's influencer marketing is aimed at teenagers in New Mexico and in other states. Put differently, plaintiffs appear to assert that the court can exercise jurisdiction over Mr. Graham because teenagers in New Mexico are a subset of Stake's alleged target audience, teenagers in the United States, which teenagers shouldn't be targeted for shit regarding Stake, if we're going to keep it a buck. There are two problems with this theory. First, it relies on an allegation that Stake, not Mr. Graham, targets New Mexico. Second, plaintiffs' allegations themselves make clear that New Mexico was not the focal point of the relevant conduct. As plaintiffs put it, Stake's marketing is directed, among others, at teenagers in New Mexico and elsewhere. Far from showing that Mr. Graham made New Mexico the focal point of his content, this suggests that Mr. Graham's content is accessible in every state regardless of where the viewer is physically located. Even the article plaintiffs point to in an apparent effort to support this targeting allegation refers to Mr. Graham only once, stating that rapper Drake has become an official partner of Stake and the site has sponsored a handful of other influencers. And the article focuses on adolescents across the United States. It does not mention New Mexico at all. New Mexico is a part of the US though, but of course they need to point out that it's targeted. Like plaintiff's own allegations, this too demonstrates only that Mr. Graham's content is available nationwide on platforms like Instagram, X, and Kick. Okay? That is not enough to establish personal jurisdiction. Courts routinely reject the assertion that a defendant's nationally accessible internet content is enough to establish personal jurisdiction. In Schrader, for example, the 10th Circuit noted that the defendant web forum operators could be subject to specific jurisdiction if they had intentionally directed the web forum at the forum state there, Oklahoma. But because there was no indication that the forum targeted an Oklahoma audience, plaintiff could not establish that the court had specific jurisdiction over the forum's operators. So these are the types of technicalities that could possibly hurt some of these cases. Just have to see how it plays out. The same is true here. At most, plaintiffs allege that some unknown number of New Mexico residents have accessed Mr. Graham's globally available social media platforms and viewed stake.us related content. Like the plaintiff in Schrader, plaintiffs here have not alleged that Mr. Graham targeted a forum state audience. To the contrary, plaintiffs' allegations show that Mr. Graham's content is centered in the internet, not particularly New Mexico. And because Mr. Graham has never mentioned New Mexico or otherwise tailored his stake.us related content to New Mexico, it has no particular connection to New Mexico at all. The absence of targeting alone establishes that the court cannot exercise jurisdiction over Mr. Graham under the harmful effects framework. Also fatal to jurisdiction here is the absence of any suggestion that Mr. Graham knew that the brunt of the injury, to the extent there has been any injury, would be felt in New Mexico. In any event, because Mr. Graham did not produce his stake.us related content with the purpose of targeting a New Mexico audience, or even with the understanding that it would target a New Mexico audience, plaintiffs could not satisfy this requirement. Accordingly, even if plaintiffs have alleged that Mr. Graham's conduct has had some effects in New Mexico, without more, the harmful effect framework does not confer jurisdiction here. So this whole motion to dismiss does not actually try to absolve Drake or Stake of any wrongdoing in their promotion of the project or the promotion of the business. They're just saying that the particular state that they filed this in, because it is a state level civil lawsuit, they say this can't move forward because nothing indicates that we were aiming specifically for residents in this state, right? Now, how this thing moves forward, we'll have to see. And perhaps they may have to recalibrate, they being the plaintiffs that are suing Drake and Stake and Adin, may have to go federal rather than state in order to meet jurisdiction. I don't know. We'll see. Because plaintiffs have failed to make a prima facie showing of personal jurisdiction, the court must dismiss their claims against Mr. Graham under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 12b-2. In the alternative, Mr. Graham joins defendant's motion to compel arbitration and requests that the court submit the claims against him to arbitration and stay this proceeding. So again, they want for arbitration rather than a full-on case. Mr. Graham asked the court to first consider this motion to dismiss, and only if the court decides that it has jurisdiction over him, then alternatively address the arguments in the motion to compel arbitration, including that Mr. Graham is covered by the plain language of the agreement, is a third-party beneficiary thereto, and the doctrine of equitable estoppel requires arbitration. Okay, so this was filed by Jeff Ephra, Robert W. Ward, counsel for Drake. Okay, no need to read Adin Ross's motion to dismiss. It's pretty much the same language written in different font. So they're saying the same things about the jurisdiction. Now, here we have a declaration from Drake where he states the following. I'm over the age of 18 and competent to make this declaration. I make this declaration based on personal knowledge. If called upon to do so, I could and would testify competently to the statements in this declaration. I submit this declaration in support of my motion to dismiss for lack of personal jurisdiction. I'm a recording artist, songwriter, and entertainer. My work also includes collaborating with brands, creators, and other entertainers to produce content, including social media posts and live streams. I've never resided in the state of New Mexico. I reside in Washington, Texas. I do not maintain an office, mailing address, bank account, phone number, or a registered agent in New Mexico. Any content I have created, advertised, or posted relating to stake.us has been published solely on nationally or globally available internet platforms, including Kick, Instagram, and X. I have not used any New Mexico-specific media outlets, publications, channels, or advertising platforms to promote stake.us, nor have I directed, tailored, or targeted my stake.us related promotional content specifically to New Mexico residents or to the New Mexico market. I have never created stake.us related content with the intention or understanding that my content will be used to advertise stake.us specifically in the state of New Mexico. I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States that the foregoing is true and correct. That's a hell of a signature. Now, I'm going to do y'all a favor and not read the actual motion for arbitration. Basically, in the arbitration motion to compel for arbitration, they're basically pointing out that these were willing participants who signed up on stake.us. Of course, as I talked about before, I did a video where a lawyer was kind of looking at the situation, and he said, you know, these companies have very specific wording in their terms and conditions that when you sign up, you click off and you agree to before you are able to play the games or engage on these apps. And he says a lot of times these issues end up settling outside of court, which is basically what Drake and Adin Ross are asking. They want this to be dismissed and taken into arbitration. And then with arbitration, they're going to pull up all the terms and conditions of stake.us. They talk about how the games on the website on stake.us are free to play. And in order to spend money on stake.us, you have to willingly put your money in and understand what you're spending the money on, all that different type of stuff. There's a lot of different technicalities that try to protect these platforms from these types of lawsuits. So again, the paperwork may not be in the favor of the plaintiffs. At some point, we may see some improvements or some type of breakthrough in terms of all of these different gambling platforms, not just stake, but all of the sports betting websites, you know, all the fucking gambling shit that's going on right now. It's becoming more and more prevalent. Online gambling is more prevalent. Betting on games, betting on every fucking thing is becoming way more prevalent in conversation. So I think at some point it's going to implode, but will it happen with these particular lawsuits? I don't know. Okay. But if you want to read all of that for yourself, you could go on Court Listener, put Aubrey Graham, Adin Ross in on a recap search. You can see for yourself. Okay. Be sure to like and share this video. If this is your first time seeing me on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, become an insider. I will catch y'all on the next one. And if or when the judge responds to these motions to dismiss, we'll go over those as well. All right. Peace.
Family over fame in this bitch, yeah. The glory of living righteous is setting in. My street knowledge and education's a perfect blend. Young mogul, independent, I've been setting trends. The first one from my family to be faithfully wed. Fuck niggas and the horses that they riding on. I see this shit from all angles like a polygon. I'm never politicking, the drama be piling on. Father and great son acknowledged like I'm Bobby Bonds. Conversation with my lady about the paper route. 5 bank accounts every day I make it count. They down talking my commentary for hating now. Well, I can take it cause I'm bodying your favorite now, please. I can do this shit in my sleep. I been writing for these niggas, y'all read it and weep. I been fighting these niggas if you speak on the street. I turn your birthday party into New Year's Eve. Don't let me take it there. We ain't playing fair. This the ATL, Southside nigga moving furniture like Wayfair. Life on hold, no insurance for your healthcare. Lifeline gone, so you wanna be a millionaire? Well, let me tell you about this world I built. The women I dodged, the niggas that I read for filth. The sympathy calls, consulting for the stacks I built. I had to